One could almost taste the bitterness in the air as Madison Keller stood on the concrete driveway outside her modest home, watching her brother, Hunter, step out of a sleek, metallic silver SUV. The car gleamed in the afternoon sun, looking every bit the high-priced luxury vehicle that no doubt exceeded what Madison earned in a solid year at her marketing agency. The sting of Hunter's recent claim of financial hardship cut deeper than ever. Just a few days ago, he lamented about barely scraping by, which was why he had yet to begin repaying the $45,000 she'd lent him over a year ago to stave off bankruptcy. "Check out this beauty," Hunter boasted, running a hand along the vehicle's perfect finish. "Just picked it up yesterday. Unbelievable lease offer and packed with features." Madison's heart sank. How could he so easily flaunt such a purchase, knowing full well the loan had come from her years of penny pinching and long hours? "And here I thought you were drowning in debt," she said, doing her best to maintain a neutral tone. "That was your reason for needing the loan, wasn't it?" Hunter flicked his hand dismissively, his nonchalance like a slap in the face. "Yeah, but this is different. It's a lease. I needed something I could rely on for work." Madison's thoughts drifted back to the evening Hunter had appeared on her doorstep, red-eyed and breathless, desperate for help. She'd believed him then, handed over that check without a second thought because family stood by family. At least, that had been her understanding. "Your old car was barely 3 years old," she reminded him, frustration creeping into her voice. "You said you'd start repaying in 6 months." Hunter only shrugged, the corners of his mouth lifting in a grin meant to be reassuring. "Lighten up, Madison. You're doing great. You don't need it right now, do you?" As if to underline his point, he brought out his phone, smirking at his reflection. "Oh, and Madison, I'm heading to the Caribbean this summer. You should join, although it might be a stretch for your budget." Madison could barely find words, stunned by his audacity. Here he was, suggesting a vacation trip when he owed her thousands, as if the debt was some trivial courtesy. The gall. And yet, it sliced through any lingering hesitance she had. "I actually do need it," she said, finding her voice. "That money was for a home down payment." Unbothered, Hunter gave her a casual wave. "Maybe it's a sign to hold off. Buying is a huge responsibility, you know? Anyway, I've got to jet, spa appointment. Let's do lunch sometime soon." As the SUV purred and reversed out of her drive, Madison felt resolve harden within her. This year-long odyssey of excuses, runarounds, and broken assurances had crystallized her realization Hunter wasn't merely bad with money. He was exploiting her, and she had let it happen. It echoed a pattern that stretched back to their youth. Hunter, ever the charmer, had always found ways to slither around accountability, while Madison labored to build her life with discipline and caution. That evening, Madison stared down at her computer screen, the digits in her bank account a stark reminder of her current reality. Her savings had once nestled close to $60,000, security laid bare for the loan Hunter had all but forgotten. Now, she was back to square one, renting, while her brothers celebrated another great deal. Her phone buzzed with a new message, the screen lighting up with her mother's excitement. "Hunter just showed us his new car. Isn't it a beauty? He got such an incredible deal." An incredible deal indeed. Madison toyed with the idea of explaining the unpaid debt, but knew it would falter against the usual refrain. "Hunter's doing what he consents the divorce, sweetie." That parting 3 years ago had long evolved into a shield against accountability. Never mind that among those expenses, Hunter spun yarns of hardship crafted to entice yet another financial bailout. Hunter Keller had somehow blown through an impressive settlement and the equity in his home, all while living lavishly. As Madison Keller sifted through her emails, she found one from Hunter pleading from a year ago. "I swear, Madison, I'll pay you back within 6 months. You're my last hope. Please don't let me lose everything. You're amazing with money, and I will always owe you for this." Madison scrolled through a litany of follow-up emails, each one a symphony of excuses, the percussive beats of car repairs, property taxes, a chaotic roof. Yet, strangely, he found space in his budget for salon appointments, weekend getaways, and now that extravagant SUV. Ding! Her inbox received another missive from Hunter, gleefully displaying photos of the car, labeled New Beginnings. "Sometimes you have to bet on yourself," he wrote, a sentiment funded by Madison's dedicated savings meant for her future house. Shutting her laptop, the anger poured through her veins, stinging more for its profound disregard and betrayal rather than the financial setback itself. The following morning, determination steeled her resolve as Madison began compiling an arsenal of emails, texts, and banking records. Her skills in digital marketing made crafting a meticulous timeline of Hunter's promises and inconsistencies all the more precise. A snapshot emerged urgent cries for help that melted into months of dodges and skirting acknowledgement. She even unearthed a crumpled napkin where he had once mapped out a repayment schedule right there in her kitchen, 6 months' time, he promised, complete with figures he'd never bothered to fulfill. Later, her phone lit up with Hunter's message inviting her to a spa weekend, casually suggesting a payment plan to cover her share. The absurdity of it seared through her as rage boiled. He still owed her $45,000, yet had the gall to propose more financial entanglement. Her cousin Samantha called that evening, her voice cautious yet clear. "I saw Hunter's new SUV online. That's the same Hunter who's a bit behind on paying back your house fund, right?" "The very same," Madison confirmed, bitterness woven into her tone. "Madison," Samantha urged, "this can't continue. My husband says you should have gotten something in writing. It's not too late." Though the realization stung, Samantha was right. Madison's trust in familial bonds had left her unprotected, but now was her moment to rectify that oversight. Samantha foresaw the fallout. "They'll say you're unfeeling. They'll insist you should understand Hunter's struggles." And yet, Madison replied cruelly, "It's been me struggling, stuck in this cramped one-bedroom, while he lives large thanks to my savings." With resolve hardened, Madison began sifting through criteria for small claims court in her state. The maximum allowed there would reclaim most of what Hunter owed. Templates for demand letters lined her screen, trembling fingers typing his name. This was her turning point. No more pretense at family gatherings, no analysis behind sisterly empathy while watching her brother lavish her sacrifice. Once her decision was set in the form of a certified letter, she saved the receipt, marking it as a necessary artifact. A mere 3 days later, Hunter stormed into her place, waving that letter angrily. "Are you serious?" he barked. "How could you do this? We're family. You can't see your own brother." Madison met his fury with the calm of forged steel. "I've given you a year to resolve this as siblings. Now we handle it like two adults who made a binding financial agreement. I can't believe you're being so ruthless over money. It's mere dollars, family matters more." Yet, as the remnants of her modest apartment surrounded them, Madison's step into self-prioritization felt unshakable. Hunter had set his choices in motion with that SUV, and now it was her turn to assert her path. Madison Keller watched her brother Hunter collapse onto the couch, tears starting to flow in a performance that had often rendered apologies unnecessary. But today was different. "Family is everything, right?" Madison said, a steely edge sharpening her voice. "Important enough that I gave you my hard-earned savings when you needed it most. Important enough to trust you to keep your promises. How's that panning out?" "You know my struggles," Hunter murmured, his usual teary defense faltering. "Not enough to stop you from buying a new sports car or planning that Caribbean getaway or splurging on those designer boots," Madison countered, her patience wearing thinner than the excuses had become. Hunter's tears vanished, replaced by a simmering rage. "You're just bitter because I know how to live life while you obsess over pennies and ledgers." Madison took a breath, grounding herself. "No, Hunter, I'm furious because you manipulated my trust. You promised to pay me back, but instead squandered it on luxuries." "Fine," Hunter spat, grabbing his designer handbag, an emblem of the disparity between their worlds. "Drag me to court, then. See how our parents feel about that. They already think you're too wrapped up in your so-called responsibility." Their parents, predictably, bombarded Madison's phone with messages soon after. "Madison, are you threatening your brother?" her mom texted. "Let's discuss this sensibly," wrote her dad. Madison gathered herself to respond to all of them. Hunter borrowed $45,000, promising repayment in 6 months. Instead, he bought a new car. This exploitation stops here. The replies were swift, echoing family loyalty, her mom excusing Hunter's extravagance as a necessity for work, her dad urging compromises. Hunter's private complaint over family matters going public was especially ironic. Private? Madison laughed aloud. Like the lavish life he's flaunting online? Resolute, Madison replied simply, "You have 30 days to deal with the demand letter." After that, this heads to small claims court. The next family dinner felt like a battlefield, her mother pulling every string to ease tensions, even preparing Hunter's favorite Italian feast. Yet, the atmosphere was heavy with alliances. Her mother's voice attempted to flesh out understanding. "Why the aggressive stance, Madison?" "Hunter's been going through a rough time." Madison interrupted sharply. "He's been in a rough time for years, but that luxury car he's driving sure doesn't look like struggle." "It's different," Hunter fired back, shrugging off guilt. "I needed it for work. Appearances matter." Madison withdrew a folder, thick with proof of unmet promises. "Appearances are one thing. Integrity is another," she said, flipping it open. "Paying your debts, keeping your word, that's true success." For a moment, their father spoke, his voice weary. "Maybe your mother and I could help, contribute a little?" "No," Madison said firmly, laying down her fork. "This is not about bailing Hunter out of his chaos. This is about accountability." "But we're family," her mother interjected. "Family's supposed to be there for one another." Madison's voice rose, echoing frustration bound tightly by years of imbalance. "Really? Where was this family philosophy when I needed support after college? Hunter's place sat empty while I struggled to find housing. That was about learning independence." Hunter rolled his eyes. "Convenient," Madison snapped. "Because I needed help." Silence draped the dining room, thick with unspoken history and invisible rifts. Madison rose from the dust of routine, newfound clarity in her steps. "Next week, I file the claim," she concluded. "Explain to a judge why, after a year, you'd choose indulgence over family obligation." With that, she took her own stand, fortified not by bitterness, but determination, bidding the scattered remnants of her patience an unheard farewell. The air felt stifling as Madison Keller locked eyes with her brother, Hunter, each detail sharper than ever. The glossy sheen of his nails, the ostentatious designer attire, and that imperiousness, nurtured by family indulgence for far too long. Madison's voice cut through the tension. "Everything already changed, Hunter. It changed the moment you chose a luxury car over integrity." Hunter's warning about a shift in family dynamics had been correct. His campaign against Madison had awoken the circle of relatives. Aunts called to chide Madison's supposed harshness. Cousins spewed admonishments about upholding familial bonds. Even Grandma expressed disappointment. Madison cataloged each sanctimonious message, evidence of how Hunter had weaponized the family against her, framing Madison's plea for justice as if it were betrayal. Amidst this storm, only her cousin, Samantha, was a steadfast ally, her daily messages offering comfort and legal tips from her attorney spouse, preparing Madison for the courtroom ahead. Her parents launched a last-ditch effort a week out from trial, inviting her over under the guise of family unity, with Hunter installed at the kitchen table as if awaiting parental censure like in their youth. Her father's solemn voice offered, "We've come up with a solution." He produced a checkbook. "We'll cover half of Hunter's debt. Let's lay this unpleasantness to rest." Generous, Madison acknowledged. "But no, this isn't about you bailing Hunter out again. It's time he deals with the consequences. You'll ruin me." Hunter's voice shook, his threats of repossession spurring only resolve in Madison. She retorted, "My savings weren't collateral for your whims." "It wasn't yours any longer once you lent it," Hunter countered, the logic flawed. Before Madison could reply, their mother interjected, "Please, Madison, you're tearing us apart." Tension hardened Madison's resolve. No, Hunter did that the moment he turned to deceit. "But he's your brother," her father implored one last time. "Exactly," Madison insisted, and that bond deserved more respect than luxury wins. Hunter, rising abruptly, declared, "You'd raise our family over mere dollars. You're unforgivable." He stormed out, the familiar theatrics on full display. Madison watched his exit, feeling only clarity. For once, the spectacle wouldn't alter her course. "See you in court," she called out, turning to her parents with calm authority. "And if you intervene by covering his debt, I'll name you as co-defendants for obstruction." The weight of her words washed over her parents, dissolving the facade of parental surety into recognition. They now saw Madison not as one to be taken for granted, but as someone who would stand firm. On the day of reckoning, Madison arrived early, poised in her professional attire, organized evidence in hand. Samantha joined for support, her husband having coached Madison in the art of courtroom presentation. Of course, Hunter appeared fashionably late, decked out in new attire that screamed expense louder than his protests. Their parents, visibly uneasy, took their places behind him in the tiny courtroom. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with steely wisdom and graying edges, watched impassively as Madison enumerated every loan document, each broken promise, every excuse Hunter had concocted over wine-soaked weekends and extravagant purchases. When Hunter's turn came, he resorted to his trusty arsenal: crocodile tears, familial loyalty, the stale card of his long-ago divorce, a career-necessitating lifestyle. But the judge was unmoved. "Mr. Keller," she said, voice ringing with authority, "did you purchase a high-end vehicle instead of repaying your sister?" Hunter squirmed, his charade crumbling. "But it's a lease," he tried to explain, "essential for my career." "That's not what I asked," the judge interjected, eyes unwavering, demanding truth beyond Hunter's rehearsed performance. Hunter hesitated, corners of the truth sealing his defeat. "Well, yes, but..." Madison watched the proceedings, determination rooted deeply. Here was where accountability began, where integrity would be measured, finally, with the gravity it deserved. The judge's voice rang through the courtroom with finality, an unyielding force that made Hunter Keller shift uncomfortably in his seat. His social media escapades painted a vivid picture of indulgence rather than hardship. "Were those island getaways crucial for your real estate career, too?" the judge queried, her eyes narrowing with skepticism. Hunter squirmed under the weight of the truth. "No," he barely whispered, feeling his usual defenses crumble. "This court has zero tolerance for blatant irresponsibility regarding financial obligations," the judge announced, her words like a gavel striking the air. "Your sister demonstrated irrefutable evidence of the loan and your capacity to repay it, had you chosen to prioritize that." The stark realization dawned on Hunter. His arsenal of tears and tales of woe found no purchase here. A judge wasn't family to be swayed. Moreover, the judge continued, unfazed by Hunter's plight, "Your online display of extravagance while dodging your debt is telling. The court rules in favor of the plaintiff." Her voice carried unmistakable conviction. "You must repay the full $45,000 within 90 days. 90 days. The color drained from Hunter's face. "That's impossible," he stammered. "I don't have that much cash." "Consider selling the luxury vehicle," the judge suggested, her tone dry and unsympathetic as she moved on to the next case. Outside the courtroom, Hunter confronted his sister, Madison, with rage barely kept in check. "Are you satisfied now?" he shouted. "You've ruined everything." "No, Hunter," Madison replied with a calm she hadn't known was possible. "You did that the moment you prioritized luxury over loyalty." Their parents lingered nearby, their expressions a mix of confusion and dismay, unprepared for such unyielding consequences or for this newfound steel in Madison's spine. Madison's father began his habitual suggestion. "We could help him with a don't." Madison cut him off sharply. "He needs to learn from this." As Madison exited the courthouse with her cousin Samantha by her side, an unfamiliar lightness began to fill her, like stepping into the morning sun after a long night. The importance lay not just in reclaiming her finances, but in claiming self-respect, finally shaking off the enabling patterns that had bound them all. The court's decision sent ripples through their family, like a stone cast into still waters. Facing his debt meant Hunter had to trade his prized infinity and forego his Caribbean dreams, articulating his indignation online with tales of betrayal, though he curiously silenced any feedback questioning those narratives. Their mother, caught in the shifting tides, frequently sought peace, inviting both siblings to dinner as if closeness could erase conflict. But when Madison declined, her mother shifted tactics, relaying Hunter's challenges, canceled trips, and downsized apartments. "Isn't that enough punishment?" she lamented on one call. "That's ordinary living, not punishment," Madison pointed out, like everyone else. "But it's humiliating for him at work, driving his older car," her mother pressed, her words laden with exaggerated despair. "You mean the perfectly fine 3-year-old Audi?" "What a tragedy," Madison replied dryly. Hunter began chipping away at his debt, flaunting his payments as if they were monumental sacrifices rather than owed dues. Despite this, Madison decided to attend the annual family reunion, defying the cloud of drama Hunter had spun to preserve her own connection to familial roots. Arriving amid hushed conversations and wary stares, Madison braced herself. Some relatives kept their distance, others beelined with advice-laden whispers about privacy. Yet, a different tide emerged. Cousins sought her out for financial guidance. Aunt Clarissa quietly praised Madison's resolve for helping her stop financing her son's gambling habits. And Uncle Bennett admitted his daughter's newfound accountability upon witnessing Hunter's outcome. "Sometimes it takes tough love," he nodded sagely. "Should have learned that sooner myself." The most unexpected encounter happened when her father drew her aside. His demeanor was awkward but earnest. "I've been mulling things over," he confessed. "Your mother and I think we might not be done the best by Hunter all these years. Or you, for that matter." In those words, Madison found validation, an acknowledgement of her struggle, an olive branch reaching across the generational divide. In the aftermath of truth, a new kind of understanding began taking root. Rain lashed against the windows as Madison Keller sat down with her father in the quiet corner of a cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee swirling around them. Her father seemed nervous, wanting to express what had been hidden for too long. "We expected too little from Hunter and too much from you," he said, determination overshadowing his usual reticence. "Let me finish, Madison. Watching you confront him when the tide turned against you made me see how much we've subsidized his behavior and how unjustly we've treated you." In a gesture that surprised Madison, her father handed her an envelope. "This isn't about settling his debt. It's different. Your mother and I helped Hunter with his house down payment. We should have done the same for you. It's not the total amount you once saved, but it's a beginning." Madison gazed at the check inside, $25,000. More than just currency, it was an olive branch, a nod to her struggle, an emblem of earned respect. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered, a knot tightening in her throat. "This means more than you know." Half a year passed before Hunter completed his final payment, transferring it quietly but sharing a cryptic nod to new beginnings on his social media. Friends whispered of his newfound fiscal discipline, guided by a financial advisor. Madison's mother wrestled with the new normal of their family ties, her attempts to broker peace unwelcome. Her husband, surprisingly, had become Madison's advocate, extinguishing those guilting reconciliations. With her father's unexpected support, Madison pooled funds into her home savings, finally securing her own place. Reflecting on the past year, she'd traded familial ease and surface harmony for something richer, self-worth and assertion, even when expected to backtrack. Cousin Samantha was the essential helping hand on moving day, passing Madison a gift she designed, a framed quote that declared, "Sometimes the highest price of peace is your self-respect." She placed it with pride in her home office, a beacon of her journey and the boundaries now firmly set. At her housewarming, the evolution within the Keller family was on full display. Hunter didn't attend, but sent a simple card with congratulations, penned below his printed name, absent of theatrical gestures. Early to help, Madison's parents bore the bittersweet hint of sadness as her mother mentioned Hunter's absence, but let it rest there. Her father, eager to show off newfound diligence, revealed a spreadsheet, illustrating his late-blooming attention to the family's expenditures, a role he'd often avoided. Samantha came bearing her renowned lasagna and bubbly. To new beginnings, she toasted, raising a glass, and to standing your ground. Other relatives, once critical, now peppered Madison with inquiries about home ownership, confiding regrets over not setting limits in their own familial loans. The house, though less grand than what she once envisioned, stood as Madison's fortress, molded through steadfast resolve. Each room spoke of more than financial commitment. It echoed her journey from reliance to empowerment. Amidst the evening's festivities, Madison stole away to her new porch, listening to laughter and voices drifting from within. Where once she played the family linchpin, the peacemaker sacrificing all to mend breaches, she was now a beacon of resilience, clarity, and definition. Sometimes, she realized, family ties need the strain of breaking to rebuild healthily. At times, letting a loved one face reality is the most supportive stance one can take. And often, discovering and embracing unmet desires requires shedding illusions of necessity.